What if the state the world mocks for avocado toast and green juice was actually one of the most quietly revolutionary places in culinary history? What if the foods you eat every single day, the ones that feel timeless and inevitable, were actually born on one specific coastline, in one specific wave of immigration, hunger, and beautiful accident? California does not show up in food history textbooks the way France does, or China, or Italy. But maybe it should, because what happened here changed the way the entire world eats. Hi, my name is David, and this is Food Origins, the show where we pull back the curtain on the meals, the snacks, the drinks, and yes, the sandwiches that you thought you already understood. Every episode, we pick a place, a culture, or a moment in history, and we follow the food back to where it actually started. And I promise you, it is almost never where you think. Today we are going to California, and we are going to stay a while. Let's get the obvious one out of the way because, yes, it's on this list, and no, I will not apologize for it. Avocado toast is the most polarizing dish of the 21st century. The internet has spent the better part of a decade using it as a punchline, a symbol of millennial excess, the reason an entire generation supposedly cannot afford houses. You have heard the jokes. I have heard the jokes. Honestly, some of them are pretty good, but here is what nobody tells you. Avocado toast as a formalized, intentionally constructed dish served in a restaurant context was first documented not on some Instagram grid in 2015, but in San Francisco in 1993. A cafe called Zuni Cafe had a version of smashed avocado on bread on its menu, years before the phrase entered the cultural vocabulary. Now, humans have obviously been smashing avocado onto things for centuries. The avocado itself is native to Mexico and Central America, cultivated by the Aztec people for thousands of years. But the specific ritual of avocado on toasted artisan bread, seasoned with salt and citrus, and served as a standalone dish worth paying for, that idea was California's. Born in the same city that would later make sourdough bread a global obsession, in a restaurant culture that was already years ahead of the rest of the country. Here is the detail that reframes the whole conversation. California produces over 90% of all avocados grown in the United States. The state didn't just invent avocado toast as a dish, it controlled the entire supply chain that made the dish possible to begin with. The punchline built its own infrastructure. Avocado toast is not a symptom of a generation that doesn't understand money. It is the inevitable result of a state sitting on top of an avocado empire and eventually figuring out what to do with it. And frankly, it's delicious. I said what I said. Food. 2. The martini. Here is a sentence that will ruin cocktail hour for every person in your life who considers themselves sophisticated. The martini, the drink that launched 1,000 spy films, that has been sipped in tuxedos, at casino tables and corner offices, and rooftop bars across the civilized world, was not invented in Europe. It was not invented in New York. It was invented in a small California town during the gold rush by a bartender who was probably covered in dust. The town was Martinez, California. The year was approximately 1860. A miner, flush with gold and in the mood to celebrate, walked into a bar and asked for something special. The bartender, a man named Julio Richelieu, according to some accounts, mixed together gin and vermouth with a handful of olives and slid it across the bar. The miner reportedly asked what it was called. Richelieu, presumably with the confidence of a man who had just invented something important, named it after the town. Now, to be fair, there is a rival claim. A bartender in San Francisco named Jerry Thomas wrote a recipe for something called the Martinez cocktail in his 1887 bartending guide, which, depending on how you look at it, either confirms the California origin or muddies it beautifully. Either way, the story stays west of the Mississippi. Here is the part that stops cocktail historians cold. The modern martini, dry, clean, served in that iconic inverted triangle glass, bears almost no resemblance to the original Gold Rush version, which was sweeter and more complex. The drink evolved so dramatically across a century of American bar culture that James Bond is essentially drinking a distant descendant of a California miner's victory drink. Shaken, not stirred. But born in the California dust, regardless. Food 3. Sourdough bread. If you have ever stood in line at a San Francisco bakery at 7 in the morning, you already understand that sourdough in this city is not just bread. It is religion. It is identity. It is a deeply held civic belief that no other city on earth makes it the same way. And they are correct, and the reason why is one of the strangest and most wonderful stories in food science. Sourdough itself is ancient. Humans have been using wild yeast fermentation to leaven bread for at least 5,000 years. But the specific sourdough culture that defines San Francisco's bread, that tangy, complex, almost aggressively sour flavor profile, was born in the 1840s during the California Gold Rush. Miners flooded into Northern California from every corner of the world, and they brought their bread starters with them. A starter is simply a live culture of wild yeast and bacteria that you feed with flour and water and use to leaven bread. But something happened when those starters encountered the specific wild yeast strains native to the San Francisco Bay Area air. The bread transformed. It became more sour, more complex, more alive than anything the miners had made back home. Scientists eventually isolated the specific bacteria responsible. They named it Lactobacillus sanfrancisensis, a bacterium named after a city, because it belongs to that city, and apparently it knows it. Here is the detail that genuinely stops people cold. The sourdough starters maintained by some San Francisco bakeries today are direct descendants of cultures kept alive continuously since the Gold Rush. There are living organisms in San Francisco bakeries right now that are over 150 years old. You are not just eating bread. You are eating history that is still technically alive. Food 4. In-N-Out Burger. Somewhere in Baldwin Park in California, in 1948, a man named Harry Snyder parked a modest hamburger stand by the side of the road and attached a two-way speaker box so that customers could order from their cars. This was, in itself, not revolutionary. Drive-ins already existed. Fast food was already a concept, finding its feet in post-war America. What Harry Snyder did differently was something so simple and so stubborn that it took the entire fast food industry decades to fully understand it. He refused to freeze anything. Fresh beef, fresh produce, buns baked to order. A menu so deliberately minimal, it almost seemed like a provocation. No chicken, no fish, no salads, no seasonal items, no limited time offerings. Just burgers, fries, and shakes, made from ingredients that arrived fresh every single day. In an era when every other fast food chain was racing toward scale, toward frozen supply chains and standardized processing and the cheapest possible inputs, In-N-Out went in the opposite direction, and it became the most beloved regional fast food chain in American history. Here is the counterintuitive truth that the industry is still reckoning with. In-N-Out has never had a national advertising campaign in the traditional sense. It has never paid a celebrity to hold one of its burgers. It has never run a Super Bowl commercial. The entire cult, and it is genuinely a cult, was built on word of mouth and the simple, radical idea that fresh food tastes better than frozen food. Also, there is a secret menu. I know you know about the secret menu. Everyone knows about the secret menu. The secret menu is the worst-kept secret in California, which is a state that has a lot of competition in that category. Animal style, 4x4, protein style, Flying Dutchman. You already know. The point is, a hamburger stand in Baldwin Park invented the template for what fast food could be if it actually respected the customer. That is not nothing. Food 5. Fortune cookies. All right, I know what you were thinking. Fortune cookies were on the Chinese food origins episode, and yes, they were, but they belong here too. because the California chapter of this story is the whole story. Fortune cookies were invented in San Francisco. The most credible evidence points to Makoto Hagiwara, a Japanese landscape designer who served them at the Japanese Tea Garden in Golden Gate Park around 1914. Some historians also credit David Jung, a Chinese immigrant in Los Angeles. But every credible origin points to California. China had nothing to do with it. The cookie itself was based on a traditional Japanese temple cracker called sujura senbei, a thin folded wafer with a small paper fortune tucked inside. Hagiwara adapted it for visitors to the tea garden, and it spread through San Francisco's restaurant culture from there. Here is the number that puts this in perspective. Today, approximately 3 billion fortune cookies are produced every year, almost entirely in the United States. The largest factory making them is in New York. They are exported to Chinese restaurants around the world, including, eventually, China, where they are considered a curious American novelty. A Japanese man in San Francisco invented a snack based on a Japanese temple tradition, and the world decided it was an ancient Chinese custom. The food history here is genuinely chaotic, and I love it. In the 1960s, sushi was not mainstream in America. Let me be very clear about how not mainstream it was. The idea of eating raw fish was, for most Americans at that time, somewhere between adventurous and genuinely alarming. Sushi restaurants existed in Los Angeles, serving Japanese communities and a very small number of adventurous, non-Japanese diners. But the gap between traditional sushi and the American appetite was enormous. A Japanese chef named Ichiro Mashita, working at a restaurant called Tokyo Kaikan in Los Angeles, decided to bridge it. He replaced tuna with avocado because avocado has a similar buttery, fatty texture. He moved the seaweed from the outside of the roll to the inside so it would be less visible and less texturally confrontational for diners who were not yet comfortable with it. He used cucumber for crunch and crab, and later imitation crab for familiarity. The California roll was born, and it changed everything. Here's the thing that makes food purists uncomfortable and everyone else grateful. The California roll is the reason most non-Japanese Americans ever tried sushi at all. It was the gateway, the foot in the door, the dish that made an entire cuisine feel approachable instead of intimidating. Without the California roll, the global sushi industry as it exists today, a $100 billion industry spanning every continent, is almost certainly smaller and slower to grow. The global impact was real. A chef in Los Angeles did not dilute Japanese cuisine. He built a bridge to it, and several 100 million people walked across. Food. 7. Cioppino. Picture the docks of San Francisco's Barbary Coast in the 1880s. Italian immigrant fishermen coming in off the water with whatever the bay had given them that day. Dungeness crab, clams, shrimp, mussels, whatever fish had not gotten away. Back on the docks, someone would put a pot over a fire and throw everything in together with tomatoes, wine, and garlic. Other fishermen would walk by and contribute what they had. The Italian phrase was chip in, or in the Ligurian dialect, cioppin. And that, roughly speaking, is how San Francisco invented one of the great seafood stews of the world. Cioppino is technically a California original. It has no precise Italian ancestor, no single Ligurian or Neapolitan dish that it descends from directly. It was assembled from the logic of the docks, the ingredients of the bay, and the communal culture of a fishing community that pooled its resources because that was simply how you survived. Here is the detail that surprises most people. The Dungeness crab, which is considered absolutely essential to a proper San Francisco cioppino, is found almost exclusively along the Pacific coast. It is not an ingredient you can substitute. This means that the most authentic version of this dish can only really be made in a very specific stretch of the American coastline. The geography is part of the recipe. Cioppino is survival food that became celebration food. That is the most California sentence I have ever written. Food. 8. The French dip sandwich. 2 Los Angeles restaurants. 1 invention, 0 consensus, and over 100 years of argument that shows absolutely no sign of resolving itself. The French dip sandwich, a thinly sliced beef sandwich served on a French roll with a small bowl of warm beef broth for dipping, is one of the great American sandwich inventions. And both Philippe the Original, established in 1908, and Cole's Pacific Electric Buffet, also established in 1908, claim to have invented it in the same city in the same year. Philippe's story goes like this. In 1918, a customer named Philippe Mathieu accidentally dropped his French roll into the roasting pan drippings while making a sandwich. The customer, a police officer, said he'd take it anyway. He came back the next day and brought friends. A tradition was born. Cole's version is similar in structure, different in detail, and no less confidently told. The truth is, nobody alive today knows which restaurant got there first. The paper trails are incomplete. The original participants are long gone. And both restaurants have been serving their version for over a century with the kind of institutional confidence that can only come from genuinely believing you are right. Here's the part I find most delightful. The sandwich is called the French dip. It contains no French culinary technique, was not invented by a French person, and France has no version of it anywhere in its own food culture. The name comes from the French roll the bread was baked in. That is the entire French connection. A sandwich named after France that has nothing to do with France, invented in Los Angeles, argued over for 100 years. Honestly, this is peak food history. Food 9. Cobb salad. Hollywood, 1937. It is late. It is very late. Robert Cobb, the owner of the Brown Derby restaurant on Wilshire Boulevard, is hungry. The kitchen is technically closed. He opens the refrigerator and starts pulling out whatever is in there. Avocado, tomato, hard-boiled egg, bacon, Roquefort cheese, chicken, chives. He chops it all up, throws it in a bowl, pours French dressing over it, and eats it standing at the counter in the dark kitchen because he is a restaurant owner who has apparently been too busy running a restaurant to eat dinner. His friend, Sid Grauman of Grauman's Chinese Theater, tried the improvised salad, reportedly loved it, and came back asking for it the next day. The Brown Derby put it on the menu. The Cobb salad was born. Here is the thing about the Cobb salad that most people never stop to notice. It is a genuinely brilliant piece of culinary engineering, not because of any single ingredient, but because of how those ingredients are arranged. The classic presentation, neat rows of each component laid across the bed of lettuce before being tossed, is both visually dramatic and practically useful. You can see exactly what you are getting. You can taste each element individually before they combine. It is a salad that was designed accidentally for a culture that likes to know what it is eating. A midnight refrigerator raid in a Hollywood kitchen produced one of the most ordered salads in American restaurant history. I have raided many refrigerators at midnight. I have never invented anything. I find this deeply unfair. Food 10. The popsicle. In 1905, an 11-year-old boy named Frank Epperson in San Francisco mixed together a fruit-flavored powder drink, the kind of thing kids were obsessed with at the time, and left it outside on the porch overnight. It was an unusually cold night. In the morning, he found his drink frozen solid, with the wooden stirring stick still standing upright inside it. He pulled it out by the stick and ate it. He liked it. He liked it enough to keep making them for his neighbors and his friends for years, though he did not do anything commercial with the idea for a long time. 18 years later, in 1923, Epperson finally applied for a patent. He called it the Epsicle. His children, in the way that children have been embarrassing their parents since the beginning of recorded history, refused to call it that. They called it popsicle. The name stuck. Epperson sold the rights a few years later for a sum that historians politely describe as not enough, and the popsicle went on to become one of the most iconic frozen treats in the world. Here is the number that makes the origin story feel even more remarkable. Today, Americans consume approximately 2 billion popsicles every single year. The entire industry, the brand, the category, the concept of a frozen flavored treat on a stick traces its origin to a child who forgot about his drink on a cold San Francisco night. The greatest food inventions in history have two things in common: hunger and accident. Frank Epperson had both. He was 11. He nailed it. Walk into any major American chain restaurant in the 1980s and 90s, and you would find it on the menu without fail. Crispy wonton strips, shredded chicken, mandarin orange segments, sesame ginger dressing, iceberg lettuce doing its best, the Chinese chicken salad, a dish so thoroughly embedded in American casual dining that it felt ancient, institutional, inevitable. It was none of those things. It was Californian. And the origin story is strange enough that I am going to need you to stay with me here. The dish is most commonly credited to Cecilia Chang, a Chinese-born restaurateur who opened the Mandarin restaurant in San Francisco in 1961. Chang introduced a version of cold-dressed chicken that drew from genuine Chinese culinary traditions, specifically the Sichuan practice of serving cold chicken with sesame-based sauces. That version was sophisticated, complex, and genuinely rooted in Chinese technique. Then, Madame Wu's Garden restaurant in Santa Monica served its own version in the 1960s, and it began spreading through California restaurant culture. Wolfgang Puck, whose influence on California cuisine in the 1980s was roughly equivalent to a magnitude 9 culinary earthquake, put a version on the menu at Spago. And from Spago, it went everywhere. Here is the detail that makes food historians simultaneously amused and exasperated. The dish became wildly popular across America under the label Chinese chicken salad, while bearing an increasingly tenuous relationship to anything actually eaten in China. The wonton strips, the mandarin segments, the sweet sesame dressing, none of these are elements of a traditional Chinese salad. Because China does not really have a tradition of Western-style dressed salads at all. A dish built on a partial misunderstanding of Chinese cuisine, refined in California restaurants by Chinese immigrant chefs, marketed to American audiences under an ethnic label for familiarity, and consumed by the tens of millions. It is not a story of theft or appropriation exactly. It is something more complicated and more interesting than that. It is California doing what California has always done, taking ingredients from every culture that washed up on its shores, combining them into something entirely new, and convincing the world that it always existed. 11 foods, 1 state, and a culinary history that most people have never been told. From a gold rush bartender pouring the world's first martini, to an 11-year-old boy who forgot his drink on a cold porch. From Italian fishermen throwing their catch into a communal pot on the San Francisco docks, to a Japanese chef in Los Angeles quietly dismantling every American's fear of raw fish. California didn't just produce food, it produced ideas about what food could be, who it was for, and how it could bring completely different people to the same table. That is what Food Origins is about. Not just the where, the why. And now that you know, go look at your plate a little differently. I'm David. Hit that subscribe button. Tell me in the comments which of these 11 surprised you the most. I have a feeling the popsicle is going to divide the room.